Torture and interrogation.
Right, torture and interrogation.
Your report, some have criticized it as torture light or whatever.
Yeah, this is where the left doesn't like us.
But basically, you said we've been making up our policies as we go along. Abu Ghraib is an example of that. You believe that there should be HCIs, or highly coercive interrogative methods, that should be approved, and they should be out in the open.
Right.
The public should know. The president should say, I authorize these methods. What kinds of things would that be, or what would you endorse?
I mean, I think it would be anything sort of that goes outside the Army field manual, so possibly waterboarding, for example. But our point was this. Our point was there ought to be a set of regulations that govern what kind of tough interrogations can occur.
So that could be sleep deprivation.
The stuff that you and I probably don't feel that uncomfortable about.
Noise.
Right? Exactly. Then where we differed from, I think, a lot of people in the human rights community is there may be a group of people that we do capture that, let's just assume the ticking time bomb scenario, right, where you would want to use highly coercive interrogation tactics because time or who the person is demands that we get information from that. In those rare instances, and this was where I think we have to be clear here, it would be very rare, the president ought to authorize it because we need political accountability. You can't just say to a bunch of people, 18-year-old guys, go get information and think that system is actually a viable system. Right?
Meaning the soldiers.
Yeah.
But your report does not lay out which specific methods you
I mean, for us, for the lawyers, that seemed to us, but what we would demand, and what later on John McCain demanded in his anti-torture bill, was that the Army Field Manual ought to actually list what standards and what interrogation tactics should apply.
And interestingly, in Britain, where there's been a longer history of dealing with terrorism, Britain has a bit more open model where the public can actually participate in discussions about detention methods.
Exactly. I mean, the British have, I think you're right in terms of its history. They have a much more conversational aspect about some of these things that I think Americans feel quite uncomfortable about. They have public hearings. They have oversight review bodies. They have a chancellor who's put in charge of sort of taking all the information and creating what sort of the equivalent of our inspector generals for the public, though, and saying, here's what we've determined and here are the different ideas coming from different groups. And you get a sense when you're in Britain that there's just a much greater dialogue about what kind of authorities the government ought to have.